Welcome to At the Table with Tony. My name is Anthony Scillia, better known as Tony Mangia, and we're doing a live stream virtual Pasquetta party tonight. So usually Pasquetta is the day when friends would kind of get together after the Easter celebration to kind of like go to the countryside, go to a restaurant, usually maybe grill up some stiglioli or things like that. Eat some of the leftover pastiera, pizzagena. So gentlemen, I'm not going to introduce you. I'll let you introduce yourselves. We might have people popping in and out. So that's kind of what a party is, right? People come, people leave, people go. So we'll see what happens. So we'll start with Brendan. Brendan, introduce yourself to the people out there.
All right. So despite my name, my paternal grandmother was born and raised in Musumeli, Sicily, in the center of the island. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and I'm a very proud parishioner of our Italian Mother Church, our Madrice, St. Anthony of Padua. And last week, I actually began a new position as the executive director for the Constantinian Order in the United States. So Easter came early for me, like Christmas could come early, but very happy to be here and very grateful for the invitation. So thank you, Tony.
My pleasure. Eric?
Like Brendan, my name, once again, can't tell that I'm Italian, but my mother's side comes from a small town in Calabria called Scillia, a place that I'm very proud of, very proud product of the Italian community in the Ironbound section of Newark. And I take advantage of Anthony's good nature to have me anytime on the show. So,
yeah, you're like my recurring you're a recurring guest on the show, which I love. You're great because you're a great person, Eric.
I appreciate that.
And we have Joey Vitale. Joey, introduce yourselves.
What's going on? What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Joey Vitale, first generation Italian-American, with my family coming from San Mango Cilento, a small town in the Salerno region of Italy.
All right, and we have Father Michael Barone, but he is, I think he had a phone call, so we just stepped away for a minute. Like I said, this is a party. You get a call, you got to take it, you walk away for a minute, then you come back. So, gentlemen, let's start off with the important stuff. How was your Easter?
It was good, man. It was, we made the best of it as the only thing we can do right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, how about you, Brendan? How would you spend your Easter?
You know, Tony, there's an expression in Sicilian, and it's "come venne secunda." So, in other words, we'll take it as it comes. And I was very fortunate because I was one of the very, very few people, because of my volunteer role in our parish, that was able to attend the ceremonies for the Triduum and then Mass yesterday. So that was a blessing that very, very few people had this year. But also just spent the day with my maternal grandparents. So very grateful. And, as Joey said, we make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about you, Eric?
Yes, aside from it being a beautiful day outside, no, just a nice quiet lunch. I went to go visit some other relatives too in the afternoon, sit outside, obviously 6 feet apart, but definitely different from all the rest. Not one that I had ever imagined or hoped for, but same thing. We do what we can, right?
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I mean, it was really just me. It was just me and my wife yesterday. I made a roast pork loin. Stuffed pork loin. We had some pizzagena, some pastiera, but really it was odd. It was really odd to not be with the family, or at least visiting family. It was just really something that I don't want to get used to, put it that way. I don't want to do this for the holidays. This is too much because
once is enough.
Exactly. I mean, this is definitely, I've learned a lot in this time, and I think in a way I've drawn closer to the church a bit, even though I'm not in the church the way I would like to be. But you have to make, like you said, make the best of what we have and kind of go from there. Which I guess we would talk more about the church aspect of it to Father Barone. Well, today is Pasquetta, or Little Easter, or Easter Monday. There's many different names for it. Predominantly,
Lunedì dell'Angelo, the Monday of the Angel, and that's really beautiful.
That's interesting because I was talking to my cousins in Sicily yesterday, and they said that in their town, they actually celebrate the feast of San Michele Arcangelo today. And they move Pasquetta to Tuesday.
Well, Tony, what's interesting, and I'm sorry for
go
so rudely interjecting here, in which we can talk about more later on maybe, but in my ancestral hometown of Musumeli in Sicily, like Father Barone's hometown of Valedolmo, which is about half an hour from my hometown, there they call it l'incontro. We call it la giunta. And that's Easter Sunday evening. And without the priest, without the clergy, but the townspeople gather in the central piazza, and there's this outburst of joy. And from one angle, from three different angles of the piazza, the members of the three of the town's confraternities, of which my parish of origin, I'm a member of that confraternity, we carry the statue of Saint Michael the Archangel.
Okay.
And the other confraternities involved carry a statue of the risen Christ and of the Blessed Mother. And it's this encounter of the three of them, and we all rush towards the center of the piazza, and one's really running. And when we get to the center of the piazza, we bob our shoulders up and down very vigorously to make the statues dance, signifying the joy that even our Lord, can you imagine the joy of our Lord and our Blessed Mother when they saw each other for the first time in the flesh after the resurrection?
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Incredible.
So I have Father Michael Barone is joining us. So Father, give us a little bit about your background and how you spent your Easter.
Oh, thanks, Tony and everybody. Well, I'm a priest of the Archdiocese of Newark in New Jersey, and I'm the chaplain for the Office of Catholic Cemeteries. I'm an Italian-American. My family comes from Valle d'Almo, Sicilia, vicino Palermo, and I have some contact with some people from the town, just to know about some of the religious traditions that are kept up there. But I don't know of any direct family. But Barone is a very common name in the town, and the name goes back to the mid 17th century in that town. So it's pretty interesting. So I know my people came over very early. Mm-hmm. To the Western New York area, where the people from that area of Sicily migrated to. So that's where my Italian-American heritage comes from. As far as my Holy Week, it was spent pretty subdued, like most everybody else's, and in the parish where I'm in residence, we just did everything kind of sotto voce, and it was prayerful.
So I want to piggyback a little bit on what Brendan was talking about this Monday of the Angels, or so.
Pasquetta.
Pasquetta. But Eric and Joe, do you guys is that something that is celebrated in your respective towns with this but the Angels, or
not by the Angels? I mean, Pasquetta usually for us is just a little picnic, a little get together. We go to Monte Stella, which is the highest point near my father's town in San Mango Cilento. And we just have a little get together, just hang out for the whole day.
Okay. So what about you, Eric?
In Spillinga, it's funny. They do call it Pasquetta, but they also call it La Galilea, Galilee. And typically, what they do is they go down to the shore, because Spillinga is very close to the beach. It's about 10 minutes. And typically, they go to the beach. So rather than go to the mountains or Mangia, whatever, they'll go down to the beach typically, because then it's generally warm there, more or less,
So I guess it's kind of wherever your people are in Italy. So if you're closer to the shore, you're going to go to the shore. If you're in the mountains, you're going to stay in the mountains.
Tony, it's interesting that Eric says that, because in the sequence for Easter, Victimae Paschali Laudis, it says of our Lord, Precedet suos in Galilea, he went ahead of his followers, his disciples, to Galilee. And we think about how the risen Christ cooked breakfast, the fish for his apostles there. And for us, we're in the Vallone, and Valle d'Olmo is part of that too, a little farther removed, but we're really inland. Mm-hmm. So we have to go quite a bit to go to the sea. For us, the closest sea is Agrigento, but so we're in the Vallone, the big valley. So we do una scampagnata. We're up in the mountains anyway. So we do una scampagnata. We go into the countryside, which is 10 minutes from town. And and we have some special foods, some typical rustic plates, and that's what we do. I was privileged to be there 3 years in a row for Easter, and you can't beat the food, that's for sure.
So what would be a Pasquetta meal, say? Well, so we'll go to each of you guys. So we'll start with Brendan. What would be a Pasquetta meal in your area by Musamelli?
Well, there's a common joke in Sicily, and I'm sure throughout southern Italy, that for Pasquetta, and this is the same for April 25th, which is St. Mark's Day, but the feast of, I think it's the independence. and May 1st, which is the feast of the, in other words, their version of our Labor Day, and June 2nd, la festa della Repubblica. They say c'è prevista la nebbia domani. There's a forecast for fog because everyone grills. So they say from, the drones and the planes up above Sicily, you can see the smoke rising. So it's primarily grilled. Of course, you have the pasta al forno, you have the lasagna, the pasta al forno. But as far as the meat goes, it's really heavy on the meat because we're coming out of Quaresima, out of Lent. And besides the religious aspect, until recently, until fairly modern times, we lived off of pastorizia. Most people were shepherds and farmers, and so they couldn't afford, they had meat on Christmas and Easter and special feasts, but they couldn't afford to have meat. So they indulged to celebrate the resurrection. And there's stigliola, as you mentioned. A big thing for us, and I'm sure in other places in Sicily, is they say I cipollite, the cipollette, which are these bacon wrapped leeks, which are very, very good. And a variety, agnello, lamb, of course, is big for Easter and Easter Monday. Sausage, so a variety of pork. And
so, for people that don't know stiglioli, how could you describe that? I know it's for some it might be a little wheezy for the stomach.
Wheezy. It involves the innards. The casing is from the intestine, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
But it's really good. It doesn't taste like innards. And I had a variety of innards in Sicily throughout the year. This is the best of all, and it's really good. And something that I can say, Tony, just from my own experience, and I don't mean to, monopolize the conversation, so I'll shut up pretty quickly. In Sicily, at least in our region, in our part, our region, we don't do a pastiera and we don't do a pizzacchina. Actually, there's a version of pizzacchina,
Right,
called focaccia di mussomeli, but that's a different story. That's not an Easter food. But we do, which is very famous among Sicilians and really famous for Southern Italians in general in Buffalo, la pupa con l'uova, the dal with the egg. Okay. Sometimes it's shaped like an angel. Sometimes it takes different shapes. Some people do crosses or other religious shapes, symbols, and that's the Easter bread, a sweet Easter bread with the hard-boiled egg. Okay, and that egg is very common, with the Poles, with the Italians, with everyone, symbolizing the resurrection, symbolizing new life. So that's what we do.
Okay, so we're going to talk about Pizzagana. We're going to talk about. We're try to. Hopefully, Pat will join us because we dubbed him the king of Pizzagana last week. So he could definitely talk more to that. But so let's move on. So since Father Barone, your area is similar to Mussomeli, right? You're kind of close. So what is your? Is there anything? Is it the same? Is it different? How do you celebrate Pasquetta?
no, I have to echo what Brendan was saying, is because the Pizzagano is not part of my tradition growing up in Western New York from a Sicilian background. I only learned about it really when I came to New Jersey. There's like a pizza rustica type thing with the Pizzagano. No, but I always understood Pasquetta as being you have such this feast on Easter, right? But there's so much going on because of the liturgical celebrations, and everybody's tired, and you gather, and all the preparation that goes into making the meal. That on Monday, which is a holiday in Italy and Sicily, still, everybody can relax. So I think the picnics, everything, you eat the leftovers from yesterday because you don't have to prepare so much because it's already made. You made abbondanza yesterday, so everybody can really relax and kind of just let the button out of their pants and just really kind of just sit down and eat, and just you don't have to worry about going to spend all day in church and all day at the stove.
That's true. So Joey, what about you? What are some of the dishes that you would make on a Pasquetta?
Yeah, I mean, just going with the same theme of the variety of grilled meats and so on and so forth. But being that my town is relatively close to Napoli, of course we have pastiera and definitely have a pizzagana for sure.
Well, I know, again, like I said, I'm counting on Pat because I know he knows a lot about it, because he was kind of breaking down the different types of even pastiera. Like some areas make it with rice, some make it with the grain. Some make it even with macaroni or spaghetti. So there's so many different varieties. Now talking to you, Eric, in Calabria, do they make the pizzagana or the pizzagana or pizza rustica?
So you're actually going to be very proud because I did some of my homework before coming on. Because we were talking about ginetti, which were those.
Yes.
Okay, so I came to find out that those are actually a traditional thing that they do have on Easter, but we call them curirici in our
Okay.
dialect, completely apart from ginetti. Basically, all it is just flour and egg, and it looks like a donut, and you bake it, and then you make like a sugar syrup type on top. Um, Very primitive cooking, very simple cooking. No pizza chiena, no pastiera, none of that. We do have, similar to what Brandon was saying with the bread, but our bread is not sweet, but it does have eggs, and then they just put, like a little cross decoration on top. But basically, it's bread that you could eat with like pasta, with something savory, so it's not sweet at all. And then a hard-boiled egg that just goes along with it. But traditionally for Pasquetta, I mean, cured meats, that you denied yourself for the 40 days before. Being from Spillinga, Anduja is a big game player, big member of the family there. And pretty much it. I mean, but traditionally tagliarini and meatballs are what they would.
So what is that?
Tagliarini is a type of pasta that it's very thin. They roll it out. It's a very, very thin pasta. They roll it into like a thick mound,
Yeah.
like a roll, and you cut it very thin, and it comes out to be like a really rough cut pasta.
So
But
I guess similar to like a fettuccine or tagliatelle, but more primitive or more rustic.
correct. I would say more like a tagliatelle, yeah.
Okay, so then what? I think you showed me a picture. So the one picture that you sent me, it was the how do you
Ginetti.
say it? Ginetti. And what was the other that was the bread?
No, the better we call it campanaro, a bell tower.
And what is that?
The bread is just it's just a regular bread, just put in the shape of a circular,
Okay.
and you put 4 eggs in it, and then that's it.
Hmm.
Very simple, very, very.
I guess in a way.
Yeah.
Interesting. So again, we were talking about a little about this, about the feast of Saint Michael taking place in one of the towns that my family's from in Sicily. The town is called Nicosia, and so I was looking on, I guess, because obviously they can't celebrate it the way they would. So I was looking at their flyer from last year, and so like on Easter Sunday night, they would have the Vespers, but then on the day they would have the Mass, the procession, and the one thing that caught my eye was cucagna.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that you don't really see that much anymore in America.
Right.
I know they do it.
Although you do, Tony, some Hispanics in the United States, they do that. For us in my family's parish in Musumeli, we celebrate at the end of September the feast of Gesù Nazareno, Jesus of Nazareth, and we do the albero de la cucagna, which in dialect we call l'antina, or the antenna. And we do that then. But, another thing is in neighboring Sutera, next to my village of Musumeli, their patron, they have 2 co-patroni, San Paolino di Nola, St. Paulinus of Nola, and Sant'Onofrio Eremita, St. Onofrius the Hermit. And they celebrate him on the Tuesday, Easter Tuesday, because liturgically, even though we have the octave of Easter, traditionally, just like for Pentecost, the 2 successive days, the 2 following days, Easter Monday and Easter Tuesday, are the most solemn, and they were typically days off. So that explains, I think, too, because the shepherds, the pastori, they would come back to town, and so they had that little time. The people who were out in Campania in the countryside would come back, so they took full advantage of those days to celebrate these different saints.
Interesting.
And the pizza rustica, okay, if you want to call it in Neapolitan pizza chiena or focaccia, pizza rustica, that was made to last. That was made in days without refrigeration, and it would keep. So if they were eating, you would make it for Easter, and it lasted a few days. So that's part of the origin.
So Patrick did join us. Patrick, are you there?
Yes, I was muted. But now
Okay.
I'm unmuted.
There's
I
Patrick.
hear him. So I want to welcome Patrick to our virtual Pasquetta party. So Pat, give us a little bit of so we each introduced ourselves. We said what we did on Easter and kind of some of the dishes that we make on Pasquetta. So take it away.
Pasquetta, I don't know what I missed, and I'm sure with such a grand and glorious panel of articulation. that I stand amongst giants. So in my own humble way, Pasquetta was. See, I caught a little bit of what Brendan was saying. Liturgically, Easter Monday and Easter Tuesday. What happened was originally the entire octave of Easter was a holiday. And medieval Europe, some of the stuff that kind of was fueled behind the Protestant Revolution, aka Reformation, was the amount of feast days in the church. Because people kind of think that the medieval. And did you guys cover this?
No,
No.
go. No.
People think that the medieval world was kind of like this grueling, endless salt mine, but really it was they had a lot of days off. So if you kind of calculate in Sundays and add in the feast days that went throughout the year, you probably kind of had a German. You know how Germany seems to have every holiday off,
Mm.
or like Luxembourg, you had like all these holidays plus 6 weeks vacation. So, Saturdays were work days. They were really actually half days. So Saturday you worked until noontime, and then afternoon was considered preparation for Sunday. And then you had all these various feast days. Matter of fact, up until I guess like 1624, all the saints' feast, all the apostles were days off. So their vigils were actual fast days. That's why up until the Pian reforms of when was Father, when was the Pius XII reformed the calendar? Not 62.
Well, no, the 56 was the first major revision of Holy Week.
Not the Holy Week revision, but the calendar revision.
You mean before the 61 breviary and changed the calendar?
There was something there was another small one.
Like 54
Yeah,
preceding
54,
years.
55.
He altered the Psalter in 1950.
Yeah, around that during all those Pian quote unquote reforms.
Yeah.
There was the abolition of the vigil of all the apostles had vigils, and they were abolished, but they were and they actually had proper masses. They were holdovers from when the Feast of the Apostles were real feast days you had off and you fasted the day before. So
And they had octaves after.
yeah, and they had octaves. I mean,
Right.
Catholicism was one never-ending party. So what happened was the entire octave of Easter was a Sabbath rest. And Spain, there was some pressure that came on to Rome. So Rome knocked off the entire 8 days of the octave and made Easter Monday and Easter Tuesday a Sabbath rest. So you had Easter Sunday, Easter Monday, Easter Tuesday as full-fledged holidays. And the same went for Pentecost. Pentecost Monday, Pentecost Tuesday were full-fledged holidays. Now there was up until, oh shucks, I want to say 1827. I'm trying to think. There was today was a day of precept in the old days. Now when I say the old days,
Which means, what's that mean? What does that
Holy
mean?
Day of Obligation.
You have to
Okay.
go.
Okay.
So Easter Monday up until 1624, Holy Thursday and Good Friday, and I think maybe the Vigil. That's were days of actual holy days of obligation, because remember, up until the 55 Holy Week, Holy Thursday had unlimited masses. It had a Sunday schedule. Matter of fact, when Cardinal Spellman of New York was very anti the 55 Holy Week changes, he came back and said so many people make their Easter duty on Holy Thursday, and they can because there's masses all day long. If you only allow the one-on-one quote-unquote Mass of the Lord's Supper in the evening, that's going to mess up the whole tradition. So what happened in 1620, I think it was 1624, Holy Thursday, Good Friday are canned. That's Holy Days of Obligation. Then about 100, 200 years later, Easter Monday and Easter Tuesday are canned. Now in the south of Italy, Easter Tuesday was a full-fledged holiday, as was Pentecost Tuesday and Pentecost Monday. Easter Monday and Easter Tuesday was until unification. With unification, in the 1880s, there was an overhaul of the calendar, and Easter Tuesday and Pentecost Tuesday had dropped. But Pentecost Monday and Easter Monday are the holidays. Now, the proper gospel for Easter Monday in the old rite is Emmaus. So part of the Pasquetta tradition of going out in the countryside and roasting meat and eating the leftovers from Easter and dancing was because, number one, dancing and music are forbidden during Lent. You're too exhausted on Easter Sunday from fasting for 40 days to start dancing. So Easter Monday was a party day. and it was a recreation of Emmaus because you would go to the mass in the morning, hear the gospel of Emmaus, and then you would go out and then just have these communal meals. So that's where the return. Did you guys go over this?
No, this is great. No, we didn't. We didn't cover
So
that at all.
That was the impetus behind celebrating Pasquetta. So A, you have the idea of recreating Emmaus, and B, you have the command of Sabbath for Easter Monday, Easter Tuesday, so to continue the party. And
Now,
that's why you also have to remember it's outside of Naples. If you go into the Paese Vesuviana, all the Vesuvian towns around Naples, today's the feast of
Madonna dell'Arco.
Madonna dell'Arca is today. Madonna dell'Arca was celebrated on Easter Monday, and in Cesarunga, Madonna della Libera is celebrated today. So there was a lot of Marian feast days that were celebrated on Easter Monday. Now, some parts of Italy, it seems to be something that held off in the south, is that feast days that fell during Lent, in some places, they were actually celebrated on Easter Monday. I think it was one of the towns around Amalfi, I forget which one. Their patron, or one of their main saints, was Saint Vincent Ferrer, who was a Dominican. Became popular in the south. He was a Valencian. Became popular in the south of Italy during the years of the Spanish reign of 400 years. And because Vincent Ferrer was celebrated always during Lent, they would celebrate Vincent Ferrer on Monday. And now you have to remember something else too, is that all through Europe, all through Catholic Europe, pre-Reformation, Pentecost weekend was pilgrimage weekend. That was when people were on the move. It was the perfect weather wherever you fell in Europe. And a lot of Marian sanctuaries, their main feast day was Pentecost Tuesday. That survives a little bit in the south of Italy. Anthony, you'll find this interesting. Madonna del Mondo, the day that was like her big day was Pentecost Tuesday.
Really?
Before unification.
Is that why you celebrate it mostly in May then?
No, what happened was Pentecost Tuesday was the major feast day for so many Marian shrines in Italy, and shrines in general. So people would travel over Pentecost weekend, because remember, Saturday was an actual fast day, and it was an actual proper office, the Vigil of Pentecost. And they would travel to the countryside on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and they would get to the shrine on Tuesday, and they would celebrate. Like Madonna there's certain Madonnas, even in the Trento still, there's certain feast days, Marian shrine feast days that fall on the Tuesday of Pentecost. But when unification came, we all know that the Savoys were many things. Super Catholic, they were not. They were in a constant battle with the church because they usurped the papal states. And their administration cut down on the holy days. Remember, the Bourbons never saw holy days they didn't like. They just kept their calendar was heavier than Rome. So they cut out Pentecost Tuesday. Now remember, between Marat in 1806, when the Napoleonic forces invaded the south of Italy, remember by the time of unification, they just started. So it's about 54 years later. Some of the monasteries that had been shuttered by Marat are just starting to reopen, and the Savoyers come in, and that puts that on ice. So the sanctuary at Gelbison, to Madonna del Mondo, was basically in ruins. And then when they were just starting to get stuff going, then unification comes. So unification knocks off Easter Tuesday. So they abrogated the Easter Tuesday feast day, and they just moved it to the last Sunday in May. But that's not really the proper feast day. But the reason I go through all that is that these Easter Monday, Easter Tuesday, Pentecost Monday, Pentecost Tuesday were real liturgical days with real liturgical action.
And that's kind of what the history. That's how Pasquetta really became a thing. Then was
Sure,
through these.
You go ahead.
No, that's how Pasquetta became a thing, was through these liturgical holidays, because it was a feast day. It was a continuation of Easter in a way.
Well, sure. If you take the preface, and Father Barone, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If you take the preface for Easter,
I don't think anyone can correct you, Pat.
Oh, thanks, Father. If you take the Easter preface in the Old Mass, speaks of on this day.
Mm-hmm.
So you celebrate Mass on Tuesday. So they really act as if Easter, the day of Easter, the double Alleluia and the whole 9 yards, it lasts for 8 days.
Okay.
But you know, another thing is what shows the antiquity of this feast is that it's a feast celebrated in the East by the Orthodox.
Well, Pasquetta?
Yes, the Greeks have Pasquetta too. The Greeks, the Russians.
Really?
So we know it has to exist before the 1054 schism, since it's something, you know, the Greeks were so particular about adapting, of not adopting any kind of Romanism, right?
Mm.
So Orthodoxy is very, like, you know, you'll read Orthodox websites that attack the Holy Family, they find heretical, the Sacred Heart heretical. If anything that came after 1054 that comes from the West, they just stamp as heretical. But so that just shows that Pasquetta does go back that far. Now in Northern Europe, holy water has a lot to do with Easter Monday. So they will splash water, like in the Slavic countries, dunking water, throwing water, splashing people with water, playing jokes. It's kind of a merriment day, Easter Monday.
Now let me ask you: is for anybody can answer this? Pasquetta traditionally is more so celebrated with friends as opposed to Easter, which is celebrated with family. Correct?
That's ridiculous.
Or
that's absolutely. That's, you know what, I want to start a campaign of, Anthony,
well,
called Fake Italian News. And it was like the other fake fraud is the Feast of the Seven Fishes, right? You might have some towns in Italy that have a number on the Feast of the Seven Fishes, but when American writers were trying to tell America about the Italian-American fish tradition on Christmas Eve, somebody during the Golden Girl years of the 1980s stuck the number 7 on, which would never was. Nobody in 1935 was going to a fish market in Patterson saying, I have to get 7 fish. Right? That was completely.
Well, who could afford 7 fish?
Yeah.
Sure, exactly. And if you're in Basilicata, you get a salted piece of cod and an alige. You're doing pretty good. But this Natale con I tuoi, was it I suoi Pasqua?
Il Capodanno con chi vuoi.
In the south of Italy, your family suffocates you like a heavy blanket. So there's no holiday, no day of the week that they're not A, in your business and B, surrounding you.
So that's all a bunch of BS then, I guess, is what you're
Maybe
saying.
in Lombardia and Piemonte, where they're just a different kind of people, they might pull that off. But you're telling me some town in Naples or Sicily?
Well, I have to say,
relatives are living there, please.
I have to say, unfortunately, for Central Sicily, I can speak of my own hometown, although I'm ashamed. Unfortunately, Americanization and globalization are, they're creeping in. And so now you have Halloween. And unfortunately, teenagers and young people now, unfortunately, you see them losing these traditions and these values. And there is this movement to spend Pasquetta with their friends. They've been forced to spend quality time with their family. And this doesn't go for everyone, okay? But some young people are more, alcuni sono più cattivi degli altri, or as we would say in dialect, su più tende, and so they want to go and spend time with their friends. So, or what they'll do is they'll spend lunch or part of the day with their family, and then they'll go off with their friends, which is the more common thing.
That's the modern teenager, right? So the modern teenager wants to be a teenager.
They want to break away.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you have the kids in the north of Italy that after the Christmas Eve dinner, they grandma goes to midnight mass and they're out to a club and they get hungover, but they're there for Christmas. But even if they're going out with their friends because they just want to hook up, the mother is there after she puts the underwear out on the bed is making their picnic.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's
Tony,
not Sweden. Sweden has nursing. Did you hear like in Sweden, we don't have the problems of Italy because they all live together. No one here lives with their parents, right? So we have nursing homes. So we spread coronavirus via nursing homes compared to Italians, which is insaccata, to quote Eric, one on top of the other. And that's how we spread disease. We spread disease in a much more loving way than Sweden.
What were you going to say, Brendan?
No, I was just going to just confirm what Pat said. Not that he needs it, but in our town too, there was a significant influence from the Dominican friars. And actually, they ran the shrine of our patroness, La Madonna dei Miracoli, and they promoted this hugely popular devotion to San Vincenzo Ferreri, Saint Vincent Ferrer, and so many. In my family, either you're named Giuseppe, Salvatore, Vincenzo, or Pasquale. Okay, and San Vincenzo Ferreri, Saint Vincent Ferrer, is celebrated on Low Sunday, the Sunday following Easter.
Oh wow!
So that's
yeah.
You see now I always see this is kind of we're kind of stepping away from what the topic, but this is kind of interesting. So like the name Vincent or Vincenzo.
Italian podcast. If you stay on topic, you're really not an Italian podcast. That's if the Italian podcast starts at A and winds up at like J.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how it got there. Then you know it's real Italian podcast.
So would the name Vincenzo be people have the name Vincenzo? Would it be more for Saint Vincent Ferrer or Saint Vincent the Martyr? Because technically, aren't they both Spanish saints?
Depends on where you're from. It depends on where you're from.
Okay. Yeah, but I think that I noticed this about the two Sicilies. If you go to Mexico or South America, there's a lot of devotion to Saint Rosalia, Francis of Paula. You know why there's so many roses in the south of Italy? Because that's Rosalima. So during those key years, remember, the Inquisition was in the south of Italy. It never took off because we're not that organized. But Spanish Christianity, Spanish Catholicism was beaten into the south of Italy right around the time of the Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, a little bit before that. That's why you have all the congregas in the south of Italy. That came with the Spanish. That's 100% a Spanish thing. So Vincent Ferrer Pascal is St. Pascal Bailon.
Pasquale Bailoni.
Right.
Pascal Bailon.
Yeah. So all these Southern Italian names, Rosa, Vincenzo, Pascal, that's all Spanish Catholic influenced names.
Huh.
They came to us during the Reformation, post-Reformation period.
You see that I didn't know. That's very interesting actually, because again, like you said, because there are so many people with these names that are Italian that you wouldn't say, okay, what's the
right? But Tony, remember, as far as Saint Pascal, San Pasquale goes, Saint Pascal is the patron saint of Eucharistic congresses because of his Eucharistic devotion, but he's honored, especially throughout southern Italy and Sicily in particular, and all over really where the pastorizia exists, because he's the patron saint of I Pastori, the shepherds, which was one of the top 3 professions, okay, at least as far as our town and region goes. So that's why he's so very popular and why that name is popular.
So we were talking a little bit, but before you came on, Patrick, about and I think we might have told you about in my family, one of my family's towns in Sicily, Nicosia, they celebrate Saint Michael the Archangel today, and they moved their Pasquetta to Tuesday. But I was saying about that they have on Easter, on the night of Easter, they have their Vespers for this feast, and then on the day today they would have the Mass, the procession, and the thing that I mentioned was Cucagna.
Yeah. But you mean when they climb the pole?
Yeah.
Sure.
The grease pole.
The grease pole. But I was saying that really nowadays, I know Brendan, you were saying that also some of the I guess Spanish communities
here, yeah.
Oh, here,
yeah.
Latin
in the
American
United States. In the United States, yeah, they've brought this with them.
Like Spain Spanish or Latin American?
Well, any Latin Americans.
Huh. But where did that come from? Did that come from Spain or did it come from Italy?
I would think it's safe to say Spain, because that Spanish influence also in Sicily, that I'm sure that's where that came from.
Because also there's different ways of doing the Cucagna, right? Because there's the one where they run out onto the water. Isn't that for like I think they do it for St. Peter's feast day. Was it in Boston or up somewhere? Cambridge, Massachusetts or something like that? No, I forgot the town. Maybe Pat, you know what town it is?
Gloucester. You know, Andy, go ahead, but you got to understand something else is that before Trent, Pius V, who's a Dominican, Pius V comes on the throne, and he gets elected over Reginald Cardinal Pole. Now, had Reginald Cardinal Pole become Pope, he would have been an English Pope, and Pole was a courtier, I guess, of Henry VIII, who had stayed with Rome. But to make a long story short, he was a guy all about kind of like we're going to bring the Protestants back by easy reconciliation, Leisha, kind of bring them around. Pius V was a Dominican hammer. So Pius V, he's the guy behind Lepanto. He's the guy who's behind excommunicating Elizabeth I in England, Regina in Excelsis, which basically said if you commit treason against the Queen of England, it's okay. You're absolved of any vows to a heretic queen. He was a tough guy, but also He's the guy who basically he's the guy who codified a universal Tridentine Mass. So we can really say, people say the traditional Latin Mass is a Gregorian Mass. Sure, it goes back to time immemorial of the Roman court. But the Mass we have now is how the Mass was basically celebrated in the Vatican. There were many, many diocesan differences, right? Lyon had its own rite. Braga had its own rite. The Ambrosians in Milan still have their own rite. But besides having their own liturgy, they also had their own liturgical calendars. So the hammer of there is one universal calendar, and here it is, and this is how you will celebrate, that was very much a counter-Reformation reaction that came from Pius V. Now, one reason why you needed it was because religious order missionaries like Jesuits who are underground in countries like Sweden and even in Poland for a while. Poland went Lutheran for about 10 years. Sweden, England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, all these underground priests, they wanted one codified Roman ritual, one codified Roman Mass and calendar, because if you were an underground priest in, let's say, the Diocese of Geneva, like Francis de Sales, well, I don't know if I'm a Spanish priest who's here on the mission, I don't know what their liturgical practice is or what their particular usages and stuff like that. So I want a Roman rite, because the Franciscans had their own rite, and they gave that up at the time of Pius V for uniformity. So one of the things was that sacrifice of giving up particular usages meant giving up calendars. So you might have had Nicosia. I don't know what diocese that would have been at that time, but
it's a provincia of Enna now. I don't know.
Right, but I don't know what the diocese was at that time. But celebrating St. Michael the Archangel on Easter Monday could have been a local use in Nicosia, which was what they did in that diocese. But all that was abrogated around the time of Trent, little by little. So people come back and say, oh, we have this particular thing. They're like medieval usages that kind of survived past. They were kind of traditions that were immemorial, that if you had 200 years of continuous use of a tradition at the time of Trent, which was known as immemorial, it was from
immemorial custom.
Immemorial custom, then that was left alone.
So you weren't going to change it.
Sure, they left it alone, right? But what happened was, all the upsetment in Europe, namely from the Protestant Revolution, destroys all those little independent usages in Northern Europe and the British Isles. Then you have Spain, while they had the Ottoman occupation. So many of their things, when the Los Reyes Católicos come back, Ferdinand and Isabella, they establish kind of a uniform Spanish custom, right? Mm-hmm. That's very Roman. France had multiple rites. Paris had its own rite. Lyon had its own rite. Lyon had, in certain solemn pontifical masses, they had 7 priests dressed in chasuble. Basically, that looked like in celebration. They had they had a beam, like a rood screen that went above the altar with 7 candles on it. That all their particular stuff. What happens? The French Revolution comes. The church crawls out of the tomb after the French Revolution. They all adopt the Roman use. So what happens in Italy is, Italy had all these little idiosyncrasies. What the Spanish didn't kill during the Spanish occupation to Romanize gets kind of destroyed after unification. Between Murat in 1806, during the Napoleonic occupations, then you have unification in 1860. All these little particular usages get kind of destroyed, and they survive in bubbles. That's why you have St. Michael the Archangel on Monday in Nicosia.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So I want to move on to something. I want to move on to this right now. I know this is a visual. So this is we got the little pastiera, and on this side we have the pizzagana. So nice. Joe, I saw your pictures on Facebook or on Instagram. Can you tell us, what did you make this year? What did your family make this year?
I mean, my dad's wife being a baker, I mean, most everything. At least, I know last year she made 10 of each, believe it or not. She made 10 pizzicanas and 10 pastieras. This year was a little bit less, unfortunately, because of the situation. So there were 4 and 4.
So what do you put? What does she put in her pizzagana?
Egg, parmigiano. She puts actually scamorza, She puts a little tiny bit of ricotta. She puts capicola, soppressata. So, the typical stuff.
Now, Father Barone, you said that you don't, that this from your area, they don't make this.
Yeah, we didn't have pizza gain in the Western New York tradition coming from Central Sicily.
Mhm.
We had other traditions, pastas and like the baked pastas and stuff like that, but not.
Did you have like a scotcha? They call it. I know in my wife's area, she's from Ragusa.
Gotcha.
They make something called scotcha, which is like almost like it's like a focaccia. It's like a rolled stuffed bread with
Yes.
tomato
the meat.
sauce. They can put meat in it sometimes. So they also make something for Easter called a panata or impanata, which is a pie, and inside is roasted lamb, and some other spices and stuff like that.
I mean, empanada for us means just it's like a breaded chicken or meat, a pork or whatever you have. Empanada means the breaded whatever it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So different dialects, different areas, it means different things. Even in the one region of Sicily.
Yeah, I mean that's what's amazing.
Well,
I got
you cooked with what you had available.
It's true, very true. What would you say, Pat?
But just think about this. Okay, let's go to your wife's from the Provincia di Ragusa.
Mm-hmm.
Ragusa has Modica, which is where chocolate enters Europe basically through Modica.
Huh,
The
okay.
Spanish bring Mexican chocolate to Modica, and that's why the chocolate of Modica is the closest we have in Europe to how it was made in Latin America.
Oh, wow.
But let's
Okay.
think about this. They call pies empanadas. Empanada.
Okay.
Same word.
Yeah. Yep.
Empanada. That shows how close Sicily was with Spain. You
That's
have
a
the
good
same
point.
word for a little, what would you call it? Like an empanada. An empanada.
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a little like
Like
A pocket.
pocket. Sure,
pocket.
pocket. So that's what I'm saying is that
Like a
that stuff,
calzone.
right? And Sicily and Spain use the same word. It's not a coincidence.
But now so the names Pizza Chiena or Pizza Gaina or Pizza Rustica, where does that come from? Is that more of a Neapolitan word?
Sure,
Has
but
to.
you got to understand something else too. Everybody today is hooked up on these regions,
Mm-hmm.
which is another creation that came with the Garibaldi Savoia 1870 invasion, 1860 to 1870 conquest. But before that, you had provinces, which kind of more or less were different, but kind of basically put certain areas in kind of formatted certain regions. So Campania, what we know as Campania today, which is the area of people who would say that they were more Neapolitan linguistically and culturally. You take part of Molise, part of Calabria, you put them together. Pizza Gaina means a stuffed pie, a full pizza, a full pizza. Very simple. Pizza Gaina. But remember, it's not called. The one thing that happened in the United States is that we created a lingua franca. So if you take, I call it Lumonti Italian, right? And it's true though. If you take Lumonti Italian, it's kind of a pan Neapolitan. So it's like a Neapolitan. So if you're from the Cilento and you're from Caserta and you're from Naples and you put them in a room, that's the language you come up with because it's a Neapolitan we can all understand.
Yep.
So Pizza Gaina became the New Jersey word for this. And Pizza Gaina is very much a Salerno word, a Cilentano word, but if you go to like the Battipaglia area, right?
Yeah.
Oh shucks, they have a different word. It's Joey, what's the word for gluttony? I'm trying to think.
Glutton. That's a good one. You got me there.
It's basically known as the pizza of gluttony. Like different towns have different names. Now, for instance, in Caggiano, in the Val di Diano, they don't have pizza gaina. They have pasticcio, which is a pizza game with no meat, just cheese.
Yep.
Now, Pat,
So, yeah.
Pat, I don't know. You gave me this book years ago. I don't know if you could see it. It's called Le Ricette del Cilento.
Yes, I love that book.
So it's La Dieta Mediterranea nel Parco Nazionale. And it's interesting because I just did a quick look into the book and it has the recipe for Pizza Chiena. And then it also has the recipe for Pizza Chiena del Frantoio and Pizza Chiena di Cicerale.
Sure, it changes from town to town.
So yeah, because one says it's from Cicerale, one says it's from San Mauro Cilento. So that is pretty interesting.
Now you gotta remember something else: is the Cilantana custom was fresh cheese, because in their goat area, right? There's no cow. You get ricotta with cow, or you get ricotta with sheep. You don't get ricotta from goats. From ricotta, you get the fresh cheese. That's where the basket cheese comes from.
Exactly, the
Okay.
basket
So
cheese.
would cut up the basket cheese, and you mix it with egg and salami and grated dried basket cheese, the cacio ricotta, and then you put it in the oven. It all kind of melts. That's the real pizza game from kind of time immemorial. Now you have to remember something else. Salerno, south of Battipaglia, is Lucania. So if you
Okay.
take the Provincia di Potenza and you take what would be the Provincia di Salerno, south of Battipaglia, they're very much the same people. And you also go into Avellino, Irapina, they're also Pizzagana people. You know, Northern Caserta Pizzagana people. If you go into the Shosharia Sora, which used to be Northern Campania, they make Pizzagana with, they put parsley with the dried sausage up. Every town does their own thing.
A couple of years ago, Pat, and guys, I was in Rome for Holy Week, and I tried to get a pizza Gaina or a pizza rustica or something from the pastry shops in Rome. They were horrible. They didn't know anything about the Neapolitan flavors or anything like that. Dude, I got 2 different ones. I couldn't even eat them.
What was it? What was in it? What was in it, Father?
It was dry. There was egg, and there was like this cheese, but it was like an egg and cheese thing. But the pastry was really thick and too hard. Like I don't know when they made them. I can't imagine they made them, too far in advance. But they were just they were no good. I just eat them with no flavor. There was no salt. Nothing. It was just I don't know. Something I wouldn't recommend. I guess it must not be a Roman custom. I don't know what they eat for Easter in Rome.
There's another book I highly recommend if anybody can find it nowadays, because it's next to impossible to find. It's called Naples at Table. It's by Arthur Schwartz. So yeah, the name isn't Italian, but this guy, he delves deep, and I mean deep,
absolutely,
into the foods of particularly Campania and the Naples region. So my next question is, we're talking about pizza Chiena. We'll get to the dessert in a second, but there's something else that they make, that the Neapolitans, I think, more so than other areas in Italy. They make a casatiello.
The bread. Correct.
Okay, so what, Joey? Do you do bread? Well, first of all, Joey, what is this casatiello?
Casatiello, from my knowledge, is just bread, stuffed bread.
Okay, but with what? Like with ham or pork?
More rustic stromboli, more or less. Just a little bit more, doughy, and just filled with cold cuts and stuff like that. So salumi, more or less.
So this is totally different than a pizza Chiena. Yeah, it's a stuffed bread in a way, but it's not in the sense that you're putting the cheeses.
Exactly.
Now you put cheese. Casatiello has a cigula, which is known as fritella in Salerno, which is the byproduct of lard production, which is the little pieces of pork that survive in lard production.
Exactly. Is that like ciccioli, like ciccioli?
Yeah. It's a lard bread, so it's a lard bread with the cigula, lard, diced up salami, and diced up hard cheese. So you have like a provolone or a casacavallo and a diced up salami.
But the dough is bread as opposed to pizza Chiena, which is more, I guess, a short crust.
A crust, yeah.
Right, but you got to understand why, because the pizza game comes from areas that people are farm people. So if you're a farmer, you don't have money, right? So I can't. You come to my house, can I give you money? No. Do I have fancy tablecloth? No. But I got all the pig fat, all the salami, all the cheese you want to eat. You could pick out because that's why. So I learned this spending so much time in Italy. Italian-American culture is Southern Italian farm agrarian culture. Because you come to my house, I don't have a pot to urinate in, but I got plenty of food, and I'm gonna and what I do have, I'm gonna give you, and you're gonna eat till you want to burst. City people don't have that. So if you're living in the city of Naples, you gotta go out and buy the salami, you gotta go out and buy the cheese. So if you're baking bread in those towns that are around there, they're not as farmy, and so you got less. You don't have the ricotta. Remember, in the Cilento, in Salerno, in Lucania,
there's an abundance of it.
Scillia, if you don't have a sheep ricotta, you have fresh goat cheese, which is the goat cheese. The city of Naples, you gotta go buy that. So instead of going out to buy that, you make the bread. And the quesadilla is it serves for the city of Naples and the surrounding area what the pizza game serves out in the countryside. They're basically
Now, Eric, do they have anything like this in your area, a casatiello, or I know you said pizza gainer, no, but is there anything like a casatiello in your area?
Nothing, not even a stuffed bread. Not that I could think of. I got to do my research better, but I don't remember anybody discussing it. My grandmother never made anything.
So something that's really not in the wheelhouse of Calabrese cooking.
No, I mean, like I said, and maybe Pat could shed some more light. I mean, especially like I'm trying to think of another region to compare it to, maybe Basilicata, which is very simple in terms of what they produce and make.
But Basilicata is simple, but it's culturally much more Campania.
Culturally, but
They're like if Campania had an illegitimate child, it would be Lucani. It would be Basilicata. It's kind of like it's ours. We don't really acknowledge. It's kind of like that. I don't know if I want to acknowledge you as the father. I don't know if you want to acknowledge me as the son. But they're very much the same people. Crotone, Calabria is kind of like its own. And I say, and it depends. There's multiple Calabrias. The Crotone area is very much one thing. Reggio is very much like Sicily. And, Puglia also has no tradition, really.
What is a Pugliese? We don't have any Pugliese people here. So
thank God. Kidding. I'm kidding.
You got it, Tony. You got to get Monsignor on here because he's got a pastiera recipe that I love it. I've eaten about 1 million in my life pastieras, but Monsignor's pastiera is to die for.
Tony, last year. By the way, when we say casateggi in our dialect, those are stuffed cookies. Okay. But anyway, that's just an aside. Last year, I spent Easter with my cumbare. I baptized, as we would say in Italian-American dialect. I was the godfather to his youngest daughter. And he actually runs a VPN Verace Pizzeria Napoletana in Milwaukee called San Giorgio, St. George Pizzeria Napoletana. And he's Calabrese 100%, 100%, but his main pizzaiolo, actually both of his pizzaioli, two main pizzaioli are from Napoli, right from Napoli, Naples, Napoli Città. And I had pastiera and it was cut pizza china, the more of the bread and versus the whole pizza, the pie. And I have to say, even though we have the palumeda in our dialect, we call the pupa or pupukulova, the Easter bread with the egg, pastiera beats it. I mean, I'm ashamed to say that as a Sicilian where we don't have a pastiera, but it does. It's so much better. So Pat's right, at least on that count.
But I think Pat also...
I got a text from a viewer that is very unhappy. Vito Totino, can you hear us? Vito Totino wants us to know that Puglia has the scalcione, which they eat on Good Friday.
Yes.
I have to apologize that we are not respectful of you, Vito, and the wonderful people of Mola di Bari. Rosella's from Mola di Bari. You celebrate Morona della Rada on the Friday, on Good Friday, but on the Friday before Palm Sunday, and then Good Friday you have Our Lady of Sorrows in the context of the funeral for Christ, and you go home and eat scalcione after fasting. So thank you, Vito. I know you can't wave on a podcast, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. And Anthony, if we could amend that, I think it would would do justice to Vito's comment.
Let me see if I just sent Vito a message. Let's see if he'll join the conversation. I sent him the invite.
Well, Vito should know a lot about Calabria too, right, Pat?
Yes, absolutely. He is a son of San Vito Sulionio. He has a mother from Mola di Bari and a father from San Vito Sulionio. Vito, if you're listening, come on.
He's got.
Yeah,
I mean, I know Anthony, you have thousands of listeners. There's a lot of people that listen to this podcast, and I know that you can't let everybody on. Everybody would love to come on, but I think Vito Totino, Vito's got to be a special exception to this rule.
No, I sent him the link. So if he's listening, Vito, please join us. Just click on the Zoom, whatever it is, the Zoom thing. But that is a good point. I mean, I guess in a way it would be fair to get the other regions represented, because I'm sure like Monsignor Ambrosio, he's from Molise, so they must have their own special dishes that they make for Easter and for Pasquetta. Same thing with even Abruzzo and Molise, I guess, are similar in.
The Great Divorce, 1964, when they divorced. more or less.
But you know,
Yeah, exactly.
but Tony, I just want to say that unfortunately, again, with globalization, Americanization, and whatever, and then we have on the other hand Italian unification and other forms of modernization. And you know, living in Italy for 3 years, what I found, tutto il mondo è un paese, and all throughout Italy now, from north to the tip of Sicily, you have la colomba. Okay, the colomba, the dove, which is basically, in so many words, and forgive me, I'm not being precise, but for the sake of the discussion, basically the Easter version of the panettone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what do you know? Is that a Northern Italian? Oh, hold on. I think we have him.
Is Vito coming?
Vito.
I'm here.
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
How are you guys?
All right, so we're gonna stop all the conversation and we'll let Vito. But first of all, I want to have Vito introduce himself, and then I would like you to kind of put us in our place.
He's Cavaliere Vito Totino. Cavaliere, Cavaliere.
Pat is awfully kind. Pat always puts me on a pedestal, so thank you, Pat.
A well-deserved one.
Yeah, no, I was listening to your guys' conversation, and it's very interesting. No, I just wanted to throw in the fact that we have this tradition in Puglia. Now, my mom is from Puglia, as Pat said. My dad is from Calabria. And in Puglia, we do the scalcione, which it's technically an Easter pie, but it's mostly served on Good Friday. So essentially, the way it would work would be, you start your feast, or your fasting on Holy Thursday evening, goes all the way through Good Friday, and then usually around 3:00 you would go, take part in the liturgy of Good Friday, and then you would come home and you would break the fast after sunset, presumably, with the scalcione, which is a bread of unleavened dough, obviously, because Christ died on Good Friday, right? So even the dough can't rise. And so it's made with wine and mostly green olives, or excuse me, not olives, although some people do put olives in them, green onions. You could put olives, like I said, and anchovies mostly, and bacala. My family used to put bacala in it as well. And it's this pie that's traditionally served on Good Friday, but then you can continue to do it as well during the Easter season.
So it's more than of a seafood dish.
It is, but I guess we don't really, because it's, at the end of the day, it still is a baked pie. It's still like a pot pie type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, when you say, it's more of a seafood thing, it is. Yeah, you're right. I never really saw it that way, because it's more like a pie than it is.
Because you said that you're eating it on Good Friday, so it would have to be meatless.
Meatless, correct? Yeah.
Because I have a friend of mine she on Facebook. She was posting pictures of some of the pies that she was making. She's from Molfetta, and they do something with the cuttlefish.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar with that. Of course, as you guys know, and you guys have probably mentioned many times, the differences between the towns, even neighboring towns, can be, something of miles apart. They give you a funny example. When my grandparents got married on my mom's side, they were from neighboring towns, and after a day or two of them being married, my grandfather said something to my grandmother in dialect, and she had no idea what he was talking about. And they were neighboring towns. We're talking about maybe a couple miles apart. So it doesn't surprise me that the towns also have different, traditions as far as cuisine or whatnot. I'm not too familiar with that. Excuse me?
Where were your two grandparents? I didn't know that they were from two separate towns.
So my mom's mother is from Mola di Bari. My grandfather is from Rutigliano, which is right next door to Mola.
That's the same combo. Rosello also has a Rutigliano grandfather. That must have been like a place. That must have been kind of like the matchmaker kind of trading post.
I mean, it most likely was, because Rutigliano is a farming community. Was a farming community. It's inland, right? Mola is on the water. It's a port town. So traditionally speaking, the port towns, port cities were always the larger, where you went to do your commissions, where you went to go buy things, to trade, and etc. The inner towns were usually a little bit smaller, more rural farming communities. So they most likely, everyone from Rutigliano would go to Mola to do their shopping. They would go there for their Costco, their BJ kind of thing.
I have to be honest. I mean, only recently I've started to learn a little bit more about Puglia. I don't really know too much about it. I know I have some familial connections, not through blood, but through marriage and stuff like that. So I don't really know that much about Puglia. To me, it's a totally different world, because even the foods are a little bit different than what I say ours, than what I'm used to as a Sicilian and a Neapolitan. So what else? So what would you eat on Easter on Easter in Puglia, or at least in your area of Puglia, Vito?
So yeah, Puglia does tend to be somewhat different than what you would see in Campania, Calabria, Basilicata, Sicily. Like the what I would probably consider the majority of immigrants to America from Italy, right? The cultures are slightly different. It could be perhaps just culturally over the years, the history, who was there, who invaded, who they traded with, etc. All that thing. My grandmother used to joke that she was, of noble Greek descent, because in Puglia they're very close to Greece. If you go to, say, for instance, in Mola di Bari, where she was from, a lot of the architecture along the waterfront, they're all whitewashed, just like they would be on the Greek Isles.
Oh, wow.
So yeah. So of course, they have that big influence. Number one, of course, is fish. In Puglia, they have some of the best fish in the world, I think, even if you like raw fish. We used to go there, and they do every year. They do the Sacra del Polpo in Mola during the summer. Of course, that's the worst time to eat octopus, because obviously, if you have this big sacca going on and hundreds of, tens of thousands of people are coming into town over the week, obviously the seas can't sustain that, so it's all frozen octopus that's been saved. But the ricci, right? The urchins, right? Yeah, delicious. Abundance of seafish, seafood. The other big thing is the chicoria, the fava beans puree, which was used to be a peasant dish, and now they charge you $4 in Manhattan for something like that. And then some of the other stuff is also traditional, as it would be lamb as you go inland. One of my favorite dishes that we would serve, not just at Easter but any time, would be a casserole sort of dish called patate, riso e cozze, which is potatoes, rice, and mussels, and delicious. It's a carb bomb, but it's delicious.
So it's a casserole. It's not baked into a dough or anything, right?
No, it's just put into like a big casserole dish and baked that way. No dough, no crust or anything.
It's what you're describing sounds like heaven.
It's delicious. So it is. It's absolutely delicious. Oh, the other big thing, of course, that's really big now. I can't go to any restaurant without seeing it on the menu, is burrata.
Oh yeah.
That's a Pugliese. That's a Pugliese thing, right?
Remember, burrata
Yeah.
only came around during the Mussolini period in the 30s.
Why is that?
Because some guy invented burrata in the 30s. Like, there's a lot of, when I'm just trying to say, it's like, another thing is there's a lot of things now. People go, oh, I went to Italy and I had this real traditional limoncello, really developed in Sorrento in the 80s. And my grandma's got the piano di Sorrento. I could write a book on that. Ricotta e pere, which was a Neapolitan cake, is another, I think I would say in the 80s. It's phenomenal. It's new. Delizia di limone, which is known as a something with the cosiddetta sorrentina malfitana, something else that kind of developed in the 60s. Burrata came in the 30s. So there's a lot of things that they're not, times evolve. Somebody walked into Naples one day with a tomato and said, try this. I bet you it's really good on macaroni. Like we evolve. But I think that burrata has become and burrata is phenomenal. I mean, if you have focaccia and burrata in Bari, you're the king.
Oh my God, yeah.
And Tony,
I forgot to mention the focaccia as well is a big.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. It's like when you think of focaccia, you think of Bari or you think of Puglia, because
Altamura.
they're like synonymous.
Tony,
Altamura.
I was joking earlier, and again, I apologize, but I was just joking about not having any pugliese on. But I have to say, arguably, the best olive oil, not only in Italy but throughout the world. And actually, I was introduced to focaccia here in Buffalo by actually a relative through marriage who is from Brindisi. Okay, Brindisi, and he makes the best focaccia that I've ever had. So they are talented.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a couple of places in Hoboken that make a focaccia, and they're from, I forgot the town. They're not from Molfetta. They're from, I think, Altamura.
Yeah.
Altamura.
Yeah. Lacerdo.
And they make fun. I mean, I'll tell you what they are. The place is called Lacerdo Brothers.
Lacerdo Brothers, exactly.
Excellent focaccia. And one thing they make, which I'm sure, I don't know if it's just something that they created. They make this one focaccia. It's like I think you have to order it. They only do it on Saturday. You have to order like a weeks in advance. They cut the focaccia in half and they layer it with mortadella, and then you make it into like a sandwich.
Yes. Tony, the owner of that place is the son is a very good friend of mine, Michael. And he was telling me about that, what you just said about the mortadella.
Oh, it's like
I've never had it, unfortunately.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I know, unfortunately,
Let's
go
now. Let's go now.
Well, unfortunately, but what I was going to say is, unfortunately, because of this damn pandemic, everything is closing. So Lacerdo's, they closed for a while. I know Fiori's just closed, and it's a damn shame that all these great places are not being shut down, but they're deciding to close just because they want to keep their workers safe. They want to keep the customers safe. So really, it is unfortunate that everything we're talking about, we have to wait a couple of more weeks before we can actually eat it.
It's just going to make us appreciate it more when they do open up.
Right.
Can I tell you guys something that is, since we're talking about the focaccia with the mortadella, that is quintessential summer beach sandwich to bring with you. And there's nothing that tastes better than a freshly baked focaccia with some freshly sliced mortadella on the beach in Italy. You know, it's 95 degrees out. You got the smell of the salt water in the air. The best taste in the world.
Now, I do want, because I have you here, Vito. I know that we've talked. Me and you have talked about more of your calabrese. I never knew that you were Pugliese as well, or from Mola di Bari. So we have talked in the past about your calabrese roots. So kind of, Eric is also from Calabria. So what is the town in Calabria that your family's from?
So my dad is from San Vito sul Lagonio. Both my grandparents are from that same town, which is in the provincia di Catanzaro.
Okay, so that's in the instep. Is that the instep?
It's literally right in the center.
Okay, that's like the instep of the boot. That's like on the inside of the opposite of Eric. So what would the food there be? Would it be similar to the calabrese food that Eric has been describing, or is it something totally different?
Yeah. No. It would be more along those lines. So the big thing in Calabria for Easter would be agnello, would be the goat. And then everything from parmigiana, which my friend's mom makes and thinks it's a side dish, not a main course. To a local to kind of zoom in more, and on my dad's hometown, a small little town in the mountains, one of their traditional dishes is something called patate pipe, which is literally just potatoes and peppers, which sounds like the most simple dish you can possibly make. But I'll tell you what, fry up some bell peppers and then fry potatoes in that oil and then mix them together and tell me that's not one of the best tasting dishes you've ever had in your entire life.
There's a love affair between Calabria and peppers.
Yes.
If Mangia is the land of the tomato, Calabria is the land of the pepper.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting point. That is an interesting point. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Vito.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if you guys are too familiar with. So there was a comedian in Italy a few years back. His whole theme, his whole thing was that he was from Calabria, but his family had moved to northern Italy. And so it was the difference between growing up southern and growing up northern Italian. You know how the southern person was more hearty, more rustic, more like a manly man, and where the person up north was more delicate and all that. And he's got some funny things. Anyway, he made famous in Italy the peperoncino di Soverato. So Soverato is this beautiful beach resort town where we go to the beach every year in Calabria. And this it became a joke. It became like this viral thing in Italy, the peperoncino of Soverato, the red pepper of Soverato. Well, I'll give you guys a funny story. I never ate pepperoncino and Soverato until this guy started talking about it. Now you can't go to a store without seeing pepperoncino hanging everywhere. But yes, traditionally, yeah, in Soverato. They because Soverato is a port, or it's a beach town, so the majority of their dishes would have been fish. So traditionally you don't really eat too spicy when it comes to fish. I would just really kill the fish flavor. That was more of an inland thing, but it took off. It was a joke. It was funny, and now if you go to Soverato, you see red peppers hanging everywhere.
So that's an interesting point. So when you think of Calabria, you think of peppers. When you think of Campania, you think of tomatoes. When you think of
Puglia Brocchirab.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you think of Sicily, what do you think of? What's the first food that comes to mind? Go ahead, Brendan.
I would say, well, I'll let Father Brown answer first.
I think pasta con sardi.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
It's the thing you can only get at a Sicilian restaurant, and there's very few of those around that make it decent. It is the quintessential Sicilian dish, is pasta con sardi.
Yeah, that is but what's your vegetable? Cogut?
No.
Cucuzza was an American thing.
What's that chico, that cardone?
We call them
cardone.
Cardone and mazzaretta mare. And I would say, here in the U.S., especially in Buffalo, and Father could attest to this, pasta con sarde is the pasta for St. Joseph's table, for the tavolata di San Giuseppe. In Sicily, I didn't find that meatless tradition for St. Joseph's Day. But what I did find was, at least in Musumeli, in our town, Good Friday is pasta con sarde day. Okay? When I think of Sicily, there's really two things. One is the pasta alla norma, pasta with eggplant, quintessential Sicilian.
Eggplant is, hold on. I got to amend my answer. Hold on, I got to amend my answer. It's very simple. Sicily, 100%. The Sicilians, 800 ways to make an eggplant. That's you. We'll give you that. That's yours.
That's a good point. That's fair.
Okay.
Campania, the tomato. Calabria, the pepper. And Puglia, the bucqueira. That's what we can all agree on.
And what in Rome, the zucchini flowers in Rome are artichokes?
If you already zucca.
Yeah, I would say the Romans are artichoke people.
Or even the zucchini flowers,
But correct me if I'm wrong. The artichoke tradition in Rome is actually a Jewish tradition.
Well, carciofi alla romana or carciofi alla Judea.
Right.
The Roman and the Jewish ones both.
Right.
But also
flowers that I had in Rome for Easter a couple years ago.
Fiore di zucca. But
because it's season right now.
But also I guess we're also going to classify Abruzzo and Molise as part of this, or in Basilicata. So what would you say from those regions?
That's tough.
Yeah, that is tough.
What are we giving them?
Monsignor said that wheat is very popular, but in Molise, they're good for pasta, like con la vita.
Yeah, that's right. Because isn't Di Cecco is over there? I think they're in Abruzzo.
It's not like in Campania. No matter where you go, there's a tomato.
Of course.
Right? The Barese people, without procurab, they'll turn into Martians.
Where are they called that? Cima di Rape in
Cima di Rape, yeah.
In Puglia. And where are they? Well, actually, yeah. but in Napoli, that's called Friarelli, right?
Friarelli, yeah.
Yeah, no, Friarelli is a different varietal.
Oh, okay.
Of that,
okay.
There is a Friarelli. People in Italy have made the mistake of using the words interchangeably. They are not interchangeable because Friarelli are much thinner. They're like it's like if Brocchida became anorexic.
So what we eat here as broccoli di rape, what is that then? Do they have that in Italy, or is it something that's more specific to America?
Rapini. I mean,
it depends. Again, the town, the word changes.
Like, I mean, what we mozzarella for us, but go ahead, Pat.
my grandma's people from Pian di Sorrento.
Mhm.
We were having this conversation because Naples invaded the Sorrentine Peninsula with the creation of the Vesuviana and the roads in 1860. Because before that, Sorrento was like the Amalfi Coast. You had to take a boat from Naples. There was no land route between Naples and Sorrento. And Sorrento, in Naples, they say Friarillo, but then the Sorrentino word is Procurarab. So they never, the Neapolitan word is kind of like overwhelm people. The same way as, remember, the Cilento, the tradition of Eastern, the Cilento for the sweet thing was, of the pie, was the pizzeria, which was a pastiera without rice, with rice, and
With
without gut. It was milk, egg, sugar, and rice.
rice.
And what happened was, when the pastiera kind of exploded on the Italian national scene in the Nutella years of the 1960s, the end of the boom. Places like the Cilento went from being extremely poor to middle class, and there was more money coming in. They were able to buy ricotta from other parts of Italy, or even from the Battipaglia region, and they started to make the rice pie with ricotta. So what happened in those years was they took out, instead of using the gran and the pastiera, they put in rice, and they said it was a pizzeria, but that's not the traditional pizzeria. Traditional pizzeria was just goat milk, eggs, and sugar. So you would cook like a rice the rice was boiled, and then you mix milk, egg, and sugar together. Somehow, how the pastiera de macaroon, which is a sweet spaghetti pastiera from the Paese Vesuviana, the Cilento basically did the same thing, but with a pastry pie crust and with a substitution of rice. That's an endangered. That's gone. Only making the pizzeria with milk, goat milk, eggs, and sugar. That's completely extinct in the Cilento. And now people just make the rice pie with ricotta and rice. And even that's on its way out, because the pastiera of grain is kind of overtaking. So it's almost evolutionary in that sense. What I'm trying to say is that a Neapolitan tradition, just because Naples is a city of 1 million people with a very strong culture, the way the Neapolitans refer to Procurarab as Friarillo, that kind of became a general Campania name for something that's really very much Neapolitan.
Huh. Interesting. So now let's just talk a little bit about, since we have it, we'll move on to desserts. Let's talk a little bit. So this is a little piece of this is actually, both of these things I didn't make this year. I bought it from Palazzone in Wayne, New Jersey. He is really literally one of the best pastry shops, authentic pastry shops, probably in our area. I don't know if you guys agree, disagree.
I agree.
Yeah,
He's
his
a very
stuff is
talented man.
And he's a gentleman too. Giancarlo's a gentleman.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was there the other day. He's like, wait. So he's giving me like Easter egg, the big Easter egg to take home. I'm like,
Yeah.
Really, he's a beautiful guy. And I know, Eric, have you been there yet?
I am ashamed to say that for 3 years I've worked about 10 minutes away for 3 years. And I've not been there, and all my coworkers have been there, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go to lunch, and we'll take you, and we'll go, and I'll stop, and this and that."
You gotta go.
Eric, you have to go.
We'll go when we're allowed to go out again. We'll go.
We got him.
So let's talk a little bit before we wrap up the evening, because this has been I'm blown away. You guys are great. I love you guys. And I appreciate your time. But I want to talk a little bit about desserts before we kind of wrap up this evening. So we obviously mentioned pastiera. That's the big thing. That's like the king of, I guess, Easter desserts, especially in Naples. So are there other? I know we kind of mentioned them throughout the night, but is there anything else that we could think of that maybe we'll talk more to the Pugliese region, since that we have Vito? Is there anything that we could think of that would be a quintessential Easter dessert? Just whatever, you guys jump out.
In Italy?
I'm saying in general. I mean, we mentioned Colombo, we mentioned pastiera.
I mean, for us in Musumeli, in central Sicily, we have the pan di Spagna, we have cannoli, we have a variety of little pastries that we have for all kinds of occasions.
But even the cannoli, like a true cannoli, isn't with cow's milk.
With fresh ricotta, and I should amend my answer when I mentioned the melanzana, eggplant, melanzana, and Father mentioned pasta con sarde. I can't think of Sicily without thinking of fresh ricotta. It's impossible. and so many desserts incorporate ricotta, not just the cannoli and the pignolata, the honey balls. And also in Musumeli, we have what we call, which is a term used throughout Sicily, but means different things and different textures and makeups in different places, is le cuduregge di latte. Le cuduregge they're like kind of like fried donuts, not but like we would say fritters, not fritter, the circular ones with the hole in the middle, and they're very soft, soffici, and we pour the honey on top. We sprinkle honey and some sprinkles on top.
That almost sounds Greek, because don't the Greeks make the
Very Greek, very Greek,
Colorados?
Yes.
I think they call it the Greek.
They're very similar. So there's the Greek influence.
Calabria has something very similar too. We call them nakatoli.
That's like the donut.
And then Patrick, tell me if I'm wrong. By us, we have igrafe, which is basically the same thing. It's a donut that's fried and it's covered with cinnamon sugar.
Yeah, the difference with the graph, you see, and you have to understand something else too, is that, to follow up on what Joey said, is that Campania, because Naples was an international city, it's not an Italian city, it's an international, it's like Paris. Before the invasion, the Garibaldi and the Savoy invasion, the three most cultured major cities in Europe were London, Paris, and Naples. So the potato, which is the graffa, very much as a potato. It's a donut made with potato and a mix of potato and flour. There's a big argument that it was a Austrian pastry called the Krapfen, and that became graffa in Naples. But because Naples was an international city, you have a potato, which is a Peruvian ingredient, that goes to Germanic-speaking countries, comes in as a donut, and arrives in Naples. And from there, it spreads throughout Campania.
Okay.
So it's very much, what I'm trying to say is, if you go to Sicily, you go to Calabria, I don't want to say they were closed communities. That wouldn't be accurate. They're remote communities. So, if the Greeks settled there in 2000 BC and they made a honey ball, which the Neapolitans call struppo, which the Sicilians call pignolata. If they made a pignolata, it probably is basically the same thing that they had since they were in Greece, where Campania had so much stuff coming in that a lot of kind of fusion foods were created, just in relation to Naples being a major international port.
But to play off of that a little bit, I think that northern Sicily has more of a cosmopolitan culinary background as opposed to, say, southern Sicily.
Oh,
especially
sure.
like in the area or in the mountains. So say like the area where my wife's family's from, I think it's very. I can think there's a lot more. I'm not gonna say flavor, but a lot more flavor in the sense that more. I guess different kind of people kind of settled in. So you had the Arabs that were in Palermo. You had Greeks were all throughout the whole lot of the island. But I mean, there's actually two other things I can think of that I think to me are very Sicilian. Would be what we call giuggiolena, which is a sesame seed, right? That's kind of, we call them giuggiolena cookies. And the other thing I can think of is a cuccidata, which is a fig cookie.
We make it for Christmas though, not for.
No, I'm just saying in general about
Right.
the influence of
Well,
other
and
cultures.
Tony,
Now,
I mean, the what we call here cuccidate, and there we can say vircidate, pulcidate, buccelate, it goes on and on. Typically, we always associate them here with Christmas.
Yeah.
But it is identifiably the most Sicilian cookie in the United States. And number two, a close second, is the giuggiolene.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because now, do they make those cookies, say, in Naples, Patrick, or Calabria, Eric, or Joe, or Vito? Do they make that in Puglia?
Dried, but you have to understand something else too. Dried figs. All right, I'm gonna tell you somewhere else. They make them in England. In what sense? The traditional English Christmas cake is dried fruits that are mixed together and baked, because in medieval times, desserts were really winter desserts were an amalgamation of dried fruits and nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, England, they were not originally baked in a cake. They were wrapped in the pudding, the famous English Christmas pudding. Beef fat called suet and dried fruit and nuts and honey and then sugar were, depending on the time period, were mixed all together. wrapped in cloth, and boiled in water, and that is what the figgy pudding is. So the Sicilians put it into a cookie form, and that becomes
Right.
the cucciolata. But it really, I mean, if you go into Northern Europe, you know, they have cinnamon, spices, dried fruit. You know, Poland has the compote, right, which is all dried fruits that are soaked in wine and drank as a dessert. So dried fruits are, it's just pan-European. It's just that in
Right.
Sicily, because Sicily has just so many fig trees and has it's the perfect climate for almonds, figs, and walnuts. You just have the magic where England, remember something, the English were buying this stuff even in medieval times. So you would send, you know, products from England to Sicily and then products from Sicily to England. But if you're even a poor person in Sicily, it's a convenient ingredient to make a dessert into.
True. That's a good point.
The other thing that's quintessentially Sicilian is the Sfingi, but not like the St. Joseph Zeppola that you get here, the Neapolitan Zeppola. The Sfingi that I remember growing up with were just the fried dough with honey and powdered sugar, not filled with anything. In New Jersey, you fill everything with custard, or you put cannoli cream on top of everything. You couldn't. You can't just have the fried dough with the powdered sugar. And the honey.
Buffalo, Chicago.
We're more of a pure strain of the original immigration.
No, that's not true. You're Sicilian.
Hey,
Boston,
That's what I meant.
It is
Pure strain of the original immigration.
Campania,
Country from Sicily.
New York is all Campania. New York and New Jersey.
Right. Now,
well,
and we Neapolitanize
and I have to say, I agree with Father Barone, because when I lived in Rome, I was down on Borgo Pio, passing by this pasticceria, and they had advertised the Zeppole di San Giuseppe, and they called them Neapolitan. They were stuffed with cream, and what a letdown that was. What a letdown.
Because the whole world wants to be Neapolitan.
Oh.
No, it's just that's where more common immigration came from there, Southern Italy. But the other thing that is important you have to understand is the Sicilian dessert called the cassata, which is not like you can get in most places. It doesn't have that thick candy cover on it. The cassata is a real rich ricotta cake it's almost like a wedding cake, and it's got the chips in it, and it's just amazing. You can't really find a good what?
And the shaved almonds on top.
Exactly, the shaved almonds on top. So something, but you can't find that in New Jersey like you can.
You can. I'll tell you where. Il Dolce and Hawthorne. They are legit. Like that's what's one of the best Sicilian pastry shops around.
Is it really?
His cassata is phenomenal. His cucciolata, phenomenal. Okay. Yeah. So if you want a legit Sicilian dessert experience, go there.
Because no, it's true. Because now my mother made amazing cucciolata, and once since I was ordained, Catherine Panulo of happy memory made my mother's recipe for me in Newark at the Ironbound, and it brought tears to my eyes because I didn't think I'd ever taste my mother's cookies again. But Catherine Panulo, who we just buried this week, God rest her soul, was a phenomenal baker, and she was able to reproduce the recipe, and it was spot on. Her cucciolata were amazing, and because she's just phenomenal, and it's because when you taste something and nothing's it's like things are good, but it's not how you remember it. But because
the next time I come, I'll bring you cassata and cucciolata. But Tony, I have a question. Question that I'll throw out, and it goes to Pat in particular, but I guess the rest of you, we didn't have this in Buffalo. At least we didn't. I don't know about Father Brown's family. This whole sanguinaccio thing. Yeah.
It's Neapolitan.
Oh, yeah.
It's Neapolitan, but was that just for Christmas or was that Easter too?
That was when you killed. That wasn't for a holiday. That was when you killed the pig.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as the dolce went, the sweet version.
What happened is when you kill a pig, you have to when you impale the throat, blood comes shooting out. And I had a neighbor of mine.
Joe knows about that.
You had to carry a big like a vagina, like a tub, to the water. The blood would shoot to the big, like I guess you would say pot, like a big bowl, and you had to keep mixing it. If you don't mix it, it's going to become solid.
It'll coagulate.
Coagulate. Yes, thank you, George. So what would happen is now. Oh, do you know the story? Can I give a closing story? And then I'm like, because I just talked
We're
so
gonna
much.
close 20 minutes ago, Pat. That's okay. Go ahead.
Sanguinach, Brendan, to answer your question, is that why Sanguinach existed? The Aztec used to drink human sacrificial blood. So when they were up on Tegucigalpa, all their if you go into like Mexico, like if you go to those Aztec those Aztec pyramids that are kind of like
Right.
they're kind of, they would sacrifice people on there, and then part of the sacrifice was drinking the human blood, and they would mix the human blood with cocoa and with hot pepper. Now the Spanish saw this, the Spanish conquistadors, they were absolutely horrified because it was human sacrifice A and cannibalism B. But why? What does Spain love? Spain loves pig, because if I eat pork, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Arab. So the way the Spanish kind of Hispanified Spain after the Reconquest was they brought pigs everywhere. So the conquistadores come back to Spain with cocoa and a hot pepper, and they're like, well, you know, back when Mexico, we conquistadores, they drink this with human blood. What happened was in Naples, now remember Naples is part of the greater Spanish Empire, they mix it with pig blood. So in Naples, they would mix the hot pig blood with cocoa and turn that into a beverage, a hot cocoa beverage. But what happens is the blood coagulates, and the coagulated blood makes it into a pudding. But that was something. Now, in the early immigration, the Italian-American immigration, you could buy around Easter time, sanguinaccio was something you could buy in a bakery, but that's a modern equivalent from modern pork slaughter. So when we had slaughterhouses because remember in Italy, you only got fresh pork once a year, which was either in January or December, depending on when you kill the pig. You come to America, we have slaughterhouses, we kill pigs 365 days a year. You can have a fresh pork meat anytime you want, which was completely revolutionary. So you could have sanguinaccio anytime you want.
I do want to make one comment on sanguinaccio. A friend of mine, he has a place where he can get the pig's blood.
Yes, well, you can get it in New Jersey because it's used. Hispanic butchers use it to make morcilla.
Yeah, this place is up in Boonton. It's called Falso Farms.
I love sanguinaccio. You've had it, right?
Oh, yours is the best too.
Say it so our thousands.
Oh yeah, Patrick's is phenomenal.
No, his is the best. His is one of definitely the top one I've ever had.
I would never ever eat that in my life.
You never had it?
No, I was tricked into eating it. Like, I would never do that again.
Pat, I'm a little upset. I haven't had your sanguinaccio yet.
Let's have.
I'm gonna tell your mother.
Let's have a sanguinaccio party.
We have to.
You know, I think I get a lot of people pig's blood. So when I get it, they say, "Me, can you get pig's blood?" And so I was going to the same guy all the time. I think he thought that I had some kind of issue because I would just go, oh, what can I get? He said, oh, can I have a gallon of pig's blood? Sure. Let me guess, you're back. I have a friend. They asked me, yeah, I bet you do have a friend that wants pigs.
Yeah. Oh, so
Pat, you don't know this, but you're on a list somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on an FBI pig's blood list.
So
what do you do with it? I make it into pudding. Sure.
Yeah, sure. So Vito, is there anything that would be considered a dessert in like an Easter dessert in Puglia?
They have this. It's kind of similar also to what we have in Calabria as well. It's sort of like a big brioche type of bread, and you know, I mean, they're going to vary somewhat from region to region. And Calabria tends just to be sort of a plain brioche type of bread. Some people will put it, I don't know if you've seen it here, with the eggs, you know, like the hard-boiled eggs in it. And in Puglia, they have something similar. It's not as brioche. It's more but same concept, same sort of sweet bread that is often, I guess, you know, it starts out as dessert on probably Easter or whatnot, and then it eventually evolves into the same way the panettone does, into your breakfast treat for the next 3 weeks, you know, depending on how many you make.
Well, I do want to mention one thing before we sign off for the night. I saw this thing was pretty cool. I got an email because I went up for the St. Anthony's Feast in Boston last year, and what I thought was pretty cool. They came up with this T-shirt, and it's all the feast societies of the North End. They have united to support local food insecurity programs, especially in this time of the pandemic. So if you search it, it's a pretty cool shirt. It has each of the symbols or each of the. It's kind of hard to see it on. I mean, I know this is also going to be on
No,
a
that's okay. We
podcast.
can see it. That's good.
So it's all of the different symbols, different statues of all the different saints that they celebrate there. So,
Oh, that's nice.
so I don't. I'm trying to think how I could tell you people to go and try to buy a shirt to support. It's called if you Google North End Feast Unite, you could find it. So they have T-shirts, they have long sleeve shirts, they have the tank tops, and I think it's actually something pretty cool to kind of support the community in this time of the pandemic. So any final thoughts from anybody before we wrap up? Any final words?
Right now, I'm going for a mortadella and mozzarella sandwich with focaccia, and I have neither focaccia, mortadella, or mozzarella. And there's nowhere I can go anytime soon to get it. So
All
Anybody-
I'm saying is, after all is said and done, and after everything clears up, we definitely, one way or another, should all try to meet up and have a somewhat of a get together and somewhat of a celebration to
Amen.
basically just celebrate life, I guess.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
Because Pasquetta's for friends, Easter's for family.
right.
There you go.
There you go,
Well,
Father.
Tony, I mean, Father would be much better at saying this than I, but I would just say, even with the absence of external solemnities and celebrations and observances, Christ is risen, and just to remember that and take our hope and our confidence in that Paschal mystery and try to celebrate and live that out as best as we can.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
Eric.
Listen, I'm down to eat whenever it is. You're the glue, Anthony. You're the glue. Just keep us together. Let us know where to eat.
All
I
right.
got you guys. Don't worry about it. I got it.
And Vito, any final words from you? Vito?
I just wanted to thank.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm here. I just want to thanks for having me on. I sent my initial text to Pat just to sort of bust his chops a little bit. Pat and I go way back. But no, Tony, thanks for having me on. Like you said, we've been in contact for a while. I'm a big fan and support of everything that you're doing. So, best of luck with everything, guys. I look forward to a porchetta barbecue when this is all over. Pat, we'll leave it in your good hands to arrange all that.
yeah, the sooner the better. Because I got
Amen.
some right now for mortadella, burrata, and a focaccia.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
it.
Or I
I'm
would
not
need
gonna be
one
able to sleep
to
now.
Restaurant Depot. I miss Restaurant Depot. Something terrible.
Father Barone, can you give us a blessing, please?
I'll be happy to. Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Benedictio Dei omnipotenti, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos et maniat semper.
Amen.
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 Brexit Dominus vere. Alleluia, alleluia.
Deo
Thank you.
gracias. Alleluia. Alleluia.
Hallelujah.
Good.
Well,
Hallelujah.
It's the
Beautiful.
Paddle Boil Singers, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, if you didn't get a chance to see my my interview with Bishop Caggiano earlier today, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on the internet. So just Google that. It was a great interview I had with Bishop Caggiano. Tomorrow and Wednesday, we'll be doing a special double feature show. I'll be teaming up with the members of the Italian Enclave Society, the member of the board. So we'll be getting together for 2 days. We'll be talking to people in Italy. We'll be talking to people in America. So that's going to be tomorrow night at 8 o'clock and Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So tune in for that. Gentlemen,
Good.
thank you so very much for taking time out.
Thank you, Tony.
God bless you all. Happy Easter.
Sure.
Buona Pasqua. Buona Pasquetta. Let's keep
All right.
celebrating. Christ is risen. We'll see you next time. Ciao
God
for
bless.
now.